Hello, Jay. Welcome to those joining. Hello, Gretchen. Hello, Perennial Daydream. Welcome. How's audio, video, internet connection, all that? Hello, Marco. All right, thank you. We'll just give it some minutes for people to come in. Hello, Jayantha. Welcome. All right, I think we can get started. Let's see, sharing screen. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aneka jati sangsarang sandhavisang anibdasang. Kahakarakaং gave santo dukkha jati puna punang. Kahakaraka dittosi punagehang nakahasi. Sabbate pasuka bagga gaha kuttang visankitang. Visankara gattang chittang tanhanang kayang ajjika. Yaddahave patu bhavanti dhamma tapino jayato brahmanassa attassa kanka vapayanti sabba yato pajanati sahetu dhammang yaddahave patu bhavanti dhamma tapino jayato brahmanassa Atassa kanka vapayanti sabba yatto kayang pachayang avedi Yadahave patu bhavanti dhamma atapino jayato brahmanasa vidupayang titati marasenang suryova ubhaseyang anantikanti. All right, English. Craving is the builder of this house. Through many a birth I wandered in samsara, seeking but not finding the builder of this house. Sorrowful it is to be born again and again. O house builder, thou art seen. Thou shalt build no house again. All thy rafters are broken, thy rich pole is shattered. My mind has attained the unconditioned. Achieved is the end of craving. All doubts vanish. As phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin, ardent, absorbed, his doubts all vanish when he discerns what has a cause. As phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin, ardent, absorbed, his doubts all vanish when he penetrates the end of conditions. As phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin, ardent, absorbed, he stands, routing the troops of Mara, like the sun that illumines the sky. All right, friends. Welcome. It is Monday night, so that means it's time for another Dhammapalooza, a festival of Dhamma with the Maggasekha community, where we do a variety of different Dhamma-related activities. We did some chanting, maybe we'll do some meditation later. Depends on how early I call it. I am taking a flight tomorrow and busy doing various things. But in between then, well, it's always up to you. The community has a say in what we're going to do. Do people have a lot of questions? If you have questions, you can put those in the chat. If there's no questions, well, we usually read some suttas. Maybe you have a topic you'd like me to discuss, to give a Dhamma talk in. I can do that. But if nobody has any questions or topics you'd like me to discuss, we'll always do revert to reading suttas. Maybe we'll do some sutta roulette or word roulette. And we'll see how it goes. So I'll look in the chat. Well, we do have somebody. This is somebody must be new to our stream here. Yes, am I a Shaolin monk? No, I'm a real monk. Shaolin monks are not real monks, at least not anymore. 1,000 years ago they used to be, but no, they're kind of an act more than actual monks these days. So no, I'm not a Shaolin monk. Hello, Visaka. Hello, Rob. Welcome. Hello, Karuna. You're not late. You arrive precisely when you mean to. This is a good question. I was wondering if you would please talk about what is meant by self in the early Buddhist texts. Is it different in modern Theravada? Maybe yes and no. Hello, Gregory. Welcome. So when we're talking about self, the Pali word used is atta. And those of you who know a little bit of the Pali would know that this is actually the word that is negated by putting the an in front, anatta. And so from anatta, you know, this is a very famous Buddhist doctrine, Buddhist understanding of the nature of reality, and that there is no permanent soul, no permanent essence. Right? So the Buddha in the suttas uses this word atta in different contexts. He uses it in the context of the person goes down to the store and buys a drink, right? So like it's used in that just kind of very mundane context. And it's also used in the context of this thing that is kind of created, this this idea of some kind of permanent essence, some kind of me. Right? That's the atta. So this is what is what is talked about as self is different. These are either mundane or transcendent, depending on the context. Because even there's a sutta where the Brahmin kind of questions the Buddha. You know, it's like, oh, I've seen you use like I, me, and mine, but yet you claim this, that that there's no permanent essence, and that you're awakened. The Buddha says, of course, this is the way people address each other and talk. It would be quite hard to talk otherwise. Actually, I've seen this. I've seen some really deluded people. I've seen lots of deluded people in my years of practice, but like I've seen somebody come to like Bhavana or whatever, and they they refuse to use the words like I, me, or mine. They'll say things like, these 5 aggregates are tired, these 5 aggregates are hungry, these 5 aggregates are thirsty, thinking like they're really like wise or something, but they really sound stupid. Because that is like no person, and I include myself in this. Again, I don't claim to have any like close to awakening deep level, but my experience has been like most people who tend to have experience in wisdom into anatta, they still use me, mine, myself, because you can use those words and still know that there's nothing solid behind it, right? Because even the Buddha knew that if he went around saying, Ananda, these 5 aggregates are tired, I'm going to go for a rest, people would be like, oh, this is kind of weird. that doesn't sound very normal or makes sense or whatever. So these are the 2 main contexts for what is self. Different people translate anatta as no self or not self. Those are okay translate. I personally think the best way to understand it is soullessness, which is one of the ways you can translate anatta, because what the point is not like you don't have this person that has been created and built up from birth, right? Like, hey, I was born Joe, and I have these likes and dislikes, and I have these views, and now I'm Jayasara, and I have these likes and dislikes and these views, right? I have these kind of multiple personalities, but when you are able to pierce them with deep insight, you see actually they're just formations. They're just things that come together. There's nothing permanent there. There's nothing lasting. There's nothing solid. And in the West, in English, when we think of permanent, lasting self, usually what we're thinking about is soul. So this is the important thing to understand when we're talking about anatta. When we talk about atta, we're talking about this thing that is created. It has come to be due to various causes and conditions, and it will eventually cease due to various causes and conditions. No matter how much we cling to it, no matter how much we give a name to it, and we build, like playing a video game and you build a character, or writing a novel and you build a character, this is this person's backstory, etc. All of that is just creation. This is one of my favorite Pali words is manyati. Right? And manyati usually goes along with papancha. Many of you probably heard papancha, but maybe you've not heard manyati. But manyati, I think sometimes it's translated as conceit. Sometimes it's translated various ways, but my favorite way to translate it is as imagination, because it's pointing towards that creation. It's a building up. It's a creation. It's a imagining. And then you papancha, then you propagate it, you keep it alive, you reinforce it, etc. So I think that's my what I can say about the various understandings of the word self in the early texts. I mean, we talk about fictional book characters as if they are real when they clearly are not. Some of the people I look up to the most in my life have been fictional book characters. But that's a whole other story. It's just like people think like mythology or like the gods or things like this are all stupid. But these fictional book characters are like role models. They're ideals. Just like the Buddha. The Buddha is an ideal. Right? The Buddhist path is an ideal that we strive to develop, we strive to practice. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to get there. Just saying, following in the teachings of Jesus is an ideal. I think rather unfairly, I see a lot of people, atheists and very kind of left-leaning people who like mock Christians and things like that. It's like, oh, this is not what Jesus would do or whatever. Almost no living person in existence can do it, like act purely like Jesus or purely like Buddha, right? Or purely like Mahakassapa, Sariputta, Mahapajapati, whatever. These are all role models. These are things to strive for. Hello, Rick. Welcome. I see we have some questions that popped up. Let me see. Hello, Jay. I think I said hello to Jay already, but all right. Did I say hello to Gregory? Maybe. Marco had a question. How do I deal with people I don't enjoy being around but have to, such as a particular coworker, for example? A related question could be how to stop caring about what others might think about me. So when you really start to kind of understand how the mind works and understand how you cause yourself suffering, it becomes easier to deal with people who you might not rather be around, who might kind of like agitate you because their foibles and things that they do don't bother you as much. Obviously, this is like, somebody's not like beating you up and, like really abusive kind of things. That kind of is a different story. But, you'll always have to be, what is the definition of suffering? Right? One of the definitions of dukkha, having to deal with people, places, and experiences you don't want to deal with. Right? So as long as you are alive, as long as you are born and in the world again, you will have to deal with people you're not going to want to deal with. This is part of life. right? So then it becomes a matter of, well, how do I engage with this person or deal with this person in ways that cause me a lot less suffering? Maybe, maybe even if the foundation, if the causes and conditions are there, and I'm wise enough, maybe I might actually be able to not only keep myself from suffering, but help them a little bit too. That's not a guarantee, and most likely I would, you shouldn't think about it. You shouldn't try to do that per se, because you could always make things worse. But when you have to deal with people who are just annoying or they screw up or whatever, you reflect on various things. Like, you know, I've done that. I've been there. Maybe not in this lifetime, but in other lifetimes. I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm not perfect. Let this person be. But they're the owners of their own actions. They're gonna be the ones who suffer from their own, actions and their own stupidity, their own ignorance, just like I am. So, I'm gonna kind of protect myself by not getting too agitated and maybe even, limiting my time with them, or trying to work out my time with them in a way that will minimize, suffering. Um, but it really is about your own mind. That's really where the suffering of being around another person comes from. I think about in my life a couple times, but one of the examples is one of my favorite monks in this life is Bhante Dhammaratana. He's a monk in Bhavana Society, a Vietnam vet. He's older. I'm pretty sure he's on the autism spectrum, and he's also has dementia and all kinds of things like that. And I saw so many people become so agitated dealing with Bante, you know. And I admit, when I first lived there, I noticed some agitation arising in me as well. But once I got to know him and understand who he was and how he was, it was just like, oh, this is just Bante. It's like I don't need to take anything personally. I don't need to suffer. It's just a practice, a time for me to practice patience, right? Maybe a little endurance, and I would explain to other people, hey, listen, this is the deal. No, no need to get agitated or anything like that. This is who Bante is. And this is why I would always say that even though he was never good at giving Dhamma talks, um, his life and how he acted was a good Dhamma lesson, both in the very positive and also in having to deal with some tough situations. Um, so I quite like Bante Dhamma, but he's also been abused in the past because people don't understand him. So it behooves us to really kind of understand what we can do in our own mind and what we need to let go of, and not worry about too much, not get so attached or agitated by other people and who they are and how they act. Rob says, is there a book or a course that you recommend that gives a good grounding in the suttas? I started with Bhikkhu Bodhi's In the Buddha's Words, but was wondering if there's a next good resource. In the Buddha's Words is probably, without a doubt, the best place to start. I did a retreat last year called suttas, Framework for Study and Practice, which is kind of like a Sutta 101. That should be on my YouTube channel. If you scroll back or look under the retreats playlist. And so that's a good couple hours of me talking about the suttas. That might be helpful you, like a kind of easing people into the suttas and how to understand them and learn them and develop your, your understanding of them, because it takes many years. It's not easy, to understand even the basics of the suttas. Um, you have to study them and listen to monks, talk about them and over many years, and you get to understand more and more as you practice and develop your wisdom as well. So I don't know, maybe if anybody in the chat has any suggestions, they can post that up. But yeah, in the Buddha's words is like is the best, because Bhikkhu Bodhi not only shows you the sutta, but explains. And that's what you need. You need somebody to explain, because there's so much. There's cultural context. There's multiple layers of Dhamma context that you need to understand sometimes. It's to really understand the sutras, you just need basically years and years and years of immersion in them. I mean, I think it probably took me 6 or 7 years before I really started to feel comfortable understanding the majority of what's in all the suttas. And that was a bunch of years ago. So I have close to another 6 or 7 years added on to that. And I share the suttas and the Dhamma with you all, but I still don't, I'm not a master of the suttas. It takes a while, you know. All right. Just looking if anything pops up in the chat, and nothing pops up in a minute or two. Maybe we'll do some word roulette. I am taking my flight out to Colorado tomorrow. So I will be in Colorado for the month. And I should be able to do every Dhammapalooza. We should be able to still do Dhammapalooza in Colorado. Although there might be a monastery or a place where I stay where I might not be able to. We'll have to see how it goes. Bante, can you share some reflections on letting go, especially letting go of our hopes and dreams and letting go of things that have had great meaning in our lives? I am faced with the necessity of letting go of my life as an outdoorsman and sculptor and potter and the equivalent equipment and tools related to these ways of being. I've spent years trying to get better, expecting to return to at the core of what I am. Well, there is something to be said of never, quitting. There's something to be said of determination and to keep trying. But then there's also something to be said of understanding the limitations of a body, right, and a life, and and kind of having your expectations match what you're able to do. I mean, there's no end of videos you can see. Like, I've watched videos of people without any arms or legs do all kinds of stuff, and like, people can be quite amazing. So, I wouldn't necessarily give up per se, but as you're striving, as you are trying, it might be good to kind of, think about what I can do in terms of work, hobbies, whatever, what I can do that is not too strenuous or impossible with my current conditions. Maybe I just need to kind of adjust my hopes and dreams and doing what I find meaningful in my life into other avenues, into other places. You know, what's that thing where when there's doors closed, other doors open? And it's cliche in some ways, but I've found it to be fairly true in life. Especially when it comes to letting go of things. Like, I had to let go of a bunch of things when to become a monk. I had a bucket list to step foot on every continent in this lifetime. I even already researched and planned out how I would get to Antarctica, right? And I just had to let that go. I was like, okay, well, I mean, I've probably stepped foot on many continents throughout all my lives. That's not, I mean, it's a cool thing, cool goal, but it's not as cool as the Dhamma. So I let it go. And now, now, I as a monk, I've been to Australia. I went to Europe and South America as a layperson, but and this November I'm going to India. So as of November, as a monk, I will have been to every continent except for Africa and Antarctica. And I'm pretty sure I will never make it to there's no demand for a monk in Antarctica. So I don't think I'll make it in this life. And you know what? That's okay. But I bring this up is because what I found in life is what you're actually able to let go of, you kind of get repaid twice over. The motto I have is like the more you let go, the more you receive. And the more I test that as a monk, because this part it's like, oh, I don't want to let go. I don't know. Whenever I'm able to actually let go, I get more back than I ever would have thought I wanted to have in the first place. So there is definitely some kind of nature of karma, nature of Dhamma, nature of whatever that there's something to that. I've had it. I've seen it too many times in my own experience to think otherwise. Um, so when you're letting go, the feeling is that you're letting go and you're not receiving anything in return. But maybe we're not paying attention to what we are receiving in return, or we don't have the mindset to understand yet what we are getting by letting go. It's a powerful thing. Karuna's talking about getting me to Antarctica by becoming an employee there. I actually qualify for something for art, nature, science to go to Antarctica. There's supposedly all kinds of wild stuff down there, like lots of like alien based kind of weird things and places where people can't go. So who knows? But anyway. Hello Ryan, welcome. Gregory, I said I'm going to Colorado tomorrow morning. Well, not tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, really. But yeah, I'm going to be in Colorado all month. How is my monastery? Monastery is many, many years away. I'm not even thinking about monastery. You have to think about first steps. I have to get it's like, I don't know. I can't. I'm like the Buddha. I have lots of war similes, but it's like planning on invading Germany in World War II before planning on how you're going to get on the beach. Right, like right now, I'm at like storming the beach in Normandy era. I'm like, you know, seeing if I can get enough support to actually live there in one capacity or another, and then you know have a little vihara, like a little house, and then if there's enough support and it grows years down that line, then having an actual like forest monastery. But a monastery is a long way away, long way away. Maybe 10 years plus. Who knows? We'll see. But I mean, some wacky person could offer me property tomorrow. Just, some stuff like that can happen. But I ain't planning for it because that's just black swan out of the, black swan events, as they call it, out of the blue. I have to plan practically. And practically is right now we're in storming the beaches at Normandy era. We're not in invading Germany yet. Um, but there's still also Gregory had a question above. Um, all right. Well, I'm surprised, Gregory, you haven't heard me talk about all of these things yet. I do have a video explaining my vision, um, explaining why Colorado and things like that. Colorado because of a couple different things. First, intuition and a feeling of being drawn there. In my 20s and 30s, I had a feeling to be drawn to two places. Well, first of all, I grew up and lived my whole life in New Jersey, but I had never planned to stay there my whole life. I wanted to, at the very least, retire, to a cabin in the mountains in, Montana or Idaho or Washington or somewhere in the Northwest. Um, so that was my plan was never to stay in anywhere like where there's lots of populations of people. That's the first thing. And I just felt called to West Virginia and Colorado, those two places. I visited West Virginia, did like a kind of like, camping touristy thing by myself. I just went to West Virginia like in 2010 because I wanted to go. I wanted to just see the place and, see the mountains and, things like that. And then 6, 7 months later, I find out about Bhavana Society. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. There's this place in West Virginia, really? So it's like, and similarly, even before I moved to Bhavana, I had the intuition that I would go to Colorado. There's a you could ask this gentleman, um, Douglas. He's somebody who's known Bhante G like for 50 years, 40, 50 years. And I remember as a layperson, just moved to Bhavana, talking to him for the first time. And I said, yeah, I'll probably be at Bhavana maybe like 8 to 10 years, and then I'm going to go to Colorado. And he looked at me, he's Colorado? Well, what about Bhavana? And like so many old timers were like, who's going to take over for Bhante? Like, who's going to run Bhavana when Bhante G's gone? And it's like people would always just be talking to me like, what what do you mean you're not going to stay? And I was like, I wasn't planning on it, but I guess I should. But thankfully now I was, even though I was named like successor at Bhavana and things like that, as a junior monk, thankfully I've been freed from that. So I don't have to worry about Bhavana after Bhante G's gone. I can, continue to follow my intuition of starting a place in Colorado. Now, because I have this mind, I have a mind that like is very scientific and practical and pragmatic, and also wishes that I could cast fireballs, right? So like I have a mind that's very like intuitive and loves to kind of get into the mystical, and I have a mind that's very scientific as well. So just because I have an intuition towards Colorado doesn't mean, well, I have to figure it out. Like I have to look, what are the demographics like? What's Buddhism like there? Etc. So like, and I also want to bring Dhamma to the center of the country. I don't want to be on the coasts. There's plenty of Dhamma on the coasts. And anyway, if there's some kind of world-ending cataclysmic event, I'll be good in the mountains. No tsunami's going to reach Colorado. But anyway, I joke. So I want to kind of be a frontiersman, right? I want to kind of, set root in the middle of the country and build Dhamma in the middle of the country. There's other places, or there are other places in the middle of the country. Not really EBT Theravada places, but there are places. Bhante, what you call it? Well, there's like Sri Lankan and Thai places all over the country, even in places like Arkansas. Like you'd be surprised. There's like, viharas and wats. Because, they're usually insular places. They're not really kind of open to Westerners to come and things like that. But so my intuition, Colorado being a centrally located place, Colorado having Buddhism in its ethos already, right? Even the people who are not Buddhists basically know about Buddhism. Like, I mean, there's been, Theravada, basically none. But, Tibetan and Zen and like there's a lot of even like quasi Buddhist places like the place that I'm invited to teach at, like IMCC, Insight Meditation Community of Colorado, right? Or RMI, Rocky Mountain Insight, like these places that are, you know, maybe a certain percentage Buddhist, mostly Buddhist. It depends on the place. There's a wide variety, but there's already a kind of ethos of Buddhism there. And I kind of fill a niche, right? So there's a wide variety of reasons, both mystical and practical, that I feel Colorado is just like a perfect place to build a Dhamma empire, right? To kind of do like an Ajahn Brahm, and hopefully if I live long enough and I'm supported enough and people and I'm a good enough monk that people want to come and ordain under me and all that, then I have, do like Ajahn Chah and kick the people out and say, go start a monastery there. And then there's Maggasekha of, Colorado and Maggasekha of California and Maggasekha this and Maggasekha that, and then more places for more people to hear the Dhamma. You know? So that's why Colorado. Now, will Colorado work out? I don't know. If Colorado doesn't work out, do I have some places I figure I may be able to go to? Yes, but they're not quite. They're kind of more like long shots. If Colorado doesn't work out, I think I'm going to basically do one of two things. I'm going to allow what normally happens. What normally happens is people in an area invite a monk to come and stay there and build a monastery. Like that's how it normally happens. What I'm doing with Colorado is kind of abnormal. There are some monks that wouldn't even do it. Like you're going to a place you're not really in, like an organized group has not invited you. Like, do I have people in Colorado who want me to come to Colorado? Yes, obviously. But normally it's like, okay, we have this Buddhist group, and this Buddhist group wants to bring a monk to start a monastery, right? So what I'm doing is quasi not exactly what normally is done, at least in Theravada. So if Colorado doesn't work out, well, if somebody invites me to start Maggasekha somewhere, maybe I go there. If nowhere, then maybe I just chill out in a cave in Thailand or something like that. Just go to Thailand or Indonesia or somewhere and just chill out in a cave and become awakened, and then that's it. But we'll have to see. Colorado, there's promising signs. There's very promising signs. It's promising that I'm going to be able to stay there for a month. It's promising that I've been invited to do multiple different things, right? It's promising teachings. It's promising that, I'm going to do 6 events while I'm in Colorado this month. Not events I'm making myself using free rooms at libraries, but also events that I've been invited to by like IMCC Denver and place in Colorado Springs and things like that. And people even just on Insight Timer 2 days ago, my Insight Timer session, I mentioned, hey, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do the sessions. I'm gonna go into Colorado, and a random woman in the Insight Timer session is like, "You're coming to Colorado?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, look at my website. So then I get an email, and she's like, "Well, the schedule is not on your website yet." So I sent her my schedule, right? So she's going to come to one of my sessions. So it's just interesting how, there is another aspect of build it and they will come. Some people who are older, they know that film, Field of Dreams. You understand that. I'm building a what do you call it? I'm building a vision, right? My vision for Maggasekha, and I'm sharing that with all of you. And people like that. If you don't have a vision, if you don't have like kind of like a clear vision and a clear, this is what we're doing, and you're putting it out there, right? When it's more nebulous, people are kind of not like, like Karuna. And those of you who know Buddhist insights, Ayasoma and Giovanna, when I knew her before she was ordained, she had a clear vision and she just ran with it. She also knows marketing and she's really, very good with that stuff. But Ayasoma had a clear vision, and Bhante Sudaso got on board and they ran with it, right? And so like with me, like I have a clear vision, and I'm being very transparent and trying to have people understand that vision so that they can join me in that vision. Right? I can't do it by myself. There's no place, Ajahn Brahm gets a lot of credit for Bodhinyana. Bhante G gets a lot of credit for Bhavana. Yeah, they deserve a decent amount of credit. But when you really understand how things are built, they're just figureheads. I'm just a Maggasekha figurehead. Like, will I be in there? Like, help, we got to build this, we got to do this. Da, da, da. Yes, I'll be involved in that. but I'm nothing. I don't build it. I don't, like I can, people are the ones who build and create these Buddhist organizations. So many people who want to be involved in it and who love, they just feel the desire to help this place grow and to help this place build. That's how I felt with Bhavana Society. I mean, obviously I came in, it was long built by that point, but even, it was kind of on a downside, and I wanted to help make it better and grow. And, so I know that from my own experience that people want to, help with these things. They want to feel like part of something that's going to bring a lot of benefit to a lot of people. And, you sell the vision good enough, people see that vision and they want to stick with you and be with you, to the end. That's why, like I said, how many people did I meet who, 3, 4, 5 people, older Western people, who basically were with Bhante G, with the Bhavana vision from the beginning, board members, and helping build it and all these kind of things. That's how places like this are built. I'm just the guy with the vision, right? But if nobody else cares about that vision, well, it doesn't go anywhere. It dies with me. And if it does, that's the nature of samsara. That's the nature of anicca. I have to let it go, and that's okay. All right, going back. How should one deal with loved ones when with loved ones have trouble with proliferating thoughts that are hard for them to control? As a Buddhist, I can see it when it happens to myself, but others take them as important. For my question, I mean in the context of general emotional regulation, not meditation. Yeah. So, you know, if they actually are kind of willing, like they would, they notice that it's a problem, or at least that it is causing some kind of a problem, and they would be open to hearing from you, well, then giving them something really simple, like uh, going to the breath, like, agitation, anger, fear, anxiety, whatever, just breathe. Just do, you know, count to 10, breathing. 1, 2, stuff like that. Just like very basic things. Like like most of I helped raise my nephew. I lived with him from the time he was 1 to the time he was 10 when I left. And I remember like him, you know, 5, 6, when, he'd be sent to his room, or he'd get really angry. And I'd just go in there and I'd sit with him calmly. And I say, okay, take a breath, take a breath. And I would just, kind of be able to bring him down, and then later I would teach him a little bit of meditation. But being able to kind of help the person by something just very simple to bring them out of those thoughts, focusing on the body, focusing on the breath, focusing on something else, can be a powerful thing. but they kind of have to realize that it's some level of suffering. Like they actually want to do something about it, you know? If they don't realize that, then you're not really going to be able to help them. But you also, you don't want to, if they don't kind of realize a little bit and they're not really ready for any kind of outside, commentary, then you just kind of have to let them suffer. This, if you get pushy or try to force, like, oh, I'm a meditator, I know, just do that, they're gonna become defensive. It's not gonna really work out as well. Mm. Well, we're coming to the end of the hour, and the chat is quiet. Let's see if anything else pops up. Maybe we'll call it a night. I know I've been ending Dhammapalooza early a lot lately, but just with everything going on and my my nutritional state and all that stuff has been really wonky. So it is what it is. All right. Well, I think we can call it a night then. So, Suki Hotu, may you be happy and at ease, practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again. Have a good week.